let's rewind for just a second. Jesus said, "Truly I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out." This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying. I'm confused by this. And if you're paying attention to what Jesus says, I would hope that you're confused as well, because the original metaphor that Jesus uses makes way too much sense to be misunderstood. He says, the thief climbs in through the window. The shepherd comes in through the front door. I came through the front door. Yo, it's me, Jesus. How do you not get this, disciples? Okay, let's try it again. So Jesus says to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, I'm the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and go in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes to steal and destroy and to kill. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." Somehow, this more ambiguous metaphor sticks. That does not make sense to me. I am the door? What does that even mean? What does that even mean? How is it the disciples were confused by the easy one, but somehow understood the more confusing metaphor? We'll get to that. But first, if you're like me, then you like to gamble. Come on, let's admit it. Who here likes to gamble? Appreciate your honesty. Last night we only had one, too. Fess up to it. But hey, I'm coming after all of you after church. When we're shaking hands as you're leaving, you better own up to it. Because I'm not the only one. I'm convinced. No, but for real, I love to gamble. And I used to love watching The Price is Right. The way that I spent my summer vacations as a kid is I would sit down and I knew every morning at 10 a.m. Bob Barker was going to get up on that screen and he was going to call people up out of the audience and they were going to get to gamble on really cool prizes. I loved The Price is Right because of the mystery, because of the suspense of those doors and what was behind them. And I promised myself that I would always push the envelope if I made it onto the show. If I ever got to be one of those chosen contestants, I would push the envelope and I would take the chances, I'd make the gamble, and I would always turn down the petty prize in an unending desire for the new car. I wanted to hear those words so bad. I would give up the kitchen set. I would give up the money. I'd give up the new stereo equipment. All I wanted was that brand new car. Life is no different, really, if you think about it. There are many doors available to you, and each one is a gamble. Like a contestant on The Price is Right, we walk through life and we are standing before doors of varying shapes and sizes that promise pathways to fulfillment, to hope, and to prizes and rewards. See, where I'm from in South Chattanooga, most doors open to the street. You might say, okay, that's kind of obvious. All doors open to the street, unless you're inside. But for some of those kids that you saw up on that video, for most of our members, the doors in life open up to the streets. Streets filled with drugs and violence, with inequity and injustice. And for many of our young men in particular, there's a gamble involved. The gamble for them is that the door to the streets is actually a pathway to belonging, to community, to family, safety, security. And you may be wondering, how is that possible? I thought Jesus was confusing. You're making it worse, Josh. If the doors to the streets open up to violence and drugs and to uncertainty and most likely death or incarceration, then how is it that these young men see that door as a pathway to belonging or to safety or security? Because out in the streets, unlike in their homes, you've got gangs that are more of a family than many of the ones that they have. The belonging they feel is more powerful than that of any home they've ever lived in. What doors are before you? What doors stand before you that you've got to take the gamble on and risk it? Perhaps they're doors leading into a beautiful home where loneliness inhabits every room. Perhaps it's a door to your well-paying job that fills your bank account full, but your heart is empty and overdrafted. Maybe you have experienced doors slammed in your face time and time again as a result of failed or toxic relationships. Forget the Price is Right. Will I ever find Mr. or Mrs. Right? Or maybe even it's a door that seems only to lead you into a bleak future of uncertainty, and your only reward is despair or discouragement. Perhaps it's doors to anxiety, doors to addiction. Maybe doors that you open in some vain search to assuage your guilt, your sin, your pride. Like all too many contestants, though, on The Price is Right, the gamble doesn't pay off. You know what I mean? How many times did we see contestants on The Price is Right take a chance, go for the new car, and wind up with nothing? Truthfully, the gamble will never pay out the way that you think it will, the way that you want it to, the way that you think you know you want it to. Because unfortunately, we're all like the disciples, not understanding. Certainly not understanding when Jesus says, "I am the door." Christ says he's the door, but once again, what does that even mean? All of the spiritual, all of the religious pathways that surround us offer us doors with promises of optimism, promises of freedom, of strength, of release, of absorption into the cosmic consciousness. Yet in every case, the key to the door, those doors, rests in your hand. They're in your pocket. They may even be earned by your love or generosity. Catch my drift? It's all up to you. But what happens when you fail? Not if, but when you fail. You feel empty. What happens when you lose the key? Or you try to use the wrong key to open whatever door it is that you think you want to take the gamble on and enter through? What happens then? Worst yet, what if it's the wrong door? What are the consequences? Hate to break it to you, but it's restlessness. It's death. It's a vacuum of nothingness. It's eternal emptiness. Christ says he is the door. And walking through a door takes a step of faith. A trust that Jesus is who he says he is, and that he actually has the authority to accomplish what he says he can accomplish. You see, for our God, the door is locked from the inside, and he is the only one with the key. Only God can open God's door. And that door was locked behind each one of us for all time because of our disobedience and defiance. Our desire to say, you know what, God, I don't need you. I'm going to take the gamble on my own. I've got the keys, baby, and I'm running with them. Peace. We locked ourselves out. God's the only one with the key. But what if Jesus isn't who he says he is? Are we taking the same risk? Are we making the same bet? Are we gambling on him too? Because if he isn't who he says he is, then he certainly can't open the door. And like all other doors, you gambled on the wrong prize. But what if Jesus is who he says he is? What if he actually is the door, as confusing as that sounds? What would the consequences of the gamble on him be then? It's quite simple. Life. And life abundantly. Christ is the door that leads to salvation. And there was no gambling for the Father. The price was right for your salvation. He didn't bet on you or anyone else like you because he knew that you would always choose the wrong door, that you always open the wrong doors. And so instead, he placed all his chips, all his money, all his trust on the fact that his son would be who he said he would be and would accomplish what he said he would accomplish. And the price of God's open door policy for all who would trust in him and walk through Christ's door was the life of Christ. Christ's death, his resurrection, his ascension, those demonstrated that he is who he says he is and that he would and can do what he said he could do and that he promised to do for each of you. I am the door. No one else. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, they will be saved and they will go in and out. They will find pasture. I came that they may have life and have it to the full. The only way to be truly changed, the only way to find true fulfillment, to be truly hopeful, is to walk through the open door of Christ at the beckoning of the generous and hospitable Father through the mysterious whisperings of the Holy Spirit. I know it doesn't make sense, but come on in. You might be confused. That's all right. Walk through the door. And what awaits you? Is it a new car? No. It's something even better. It's salvation. And salvation is an eternal experience in which no more doors are slammed in your face. No more doors are locked. You're not beating your head against any doors. You've got no more wandering. There's no more disappointment, no more searching, no more restlessness. But belonging to a family that encompasses all nations, tribes, and tongues from every generation. What awaits you is communion with God the Father, Son, and Spirit for all eternity. It's safety. It's security. A place where justice reigns, where mercy flows, and there's no more death. Only abundant life. Christ says he is the door, and he has opened it to you. And because he has opened it to you, you can point other people to the door. You can show them what's behind door number 1. You can be Bob Barker. You can show them a door to true belonging, to community, a space void of superficial judgments, a space of love. You can show them a door to a future that instills real hope. A hope guaranteed by Christ's resurrection from the dead. You can show them a door to a pasture where there will be no more violence, no more suffering. Only a door to salvation where the reward is eternal safety and security. You can show them a door to the freedom of God's declaration that you are not guilty or disobedient or defiant any longer. You can show them a door to a beautiful house with many rooms already prepared for you and for them with nothing but comfort inside. Do you have a nice bathroom? Like at your house? Is that a weird question to ask you right now? I know you wouldn't own up to liking to gamble, but maybe you'll raise your hand if you had a really nice bathroom at your house. Maybe you've never thought about it. A lot of those kids who were on that video that we showed, and many more from our church, one of the first times that I was opening my door to my home to have them over, we were having a little barbecue and probably had close to 30 kids show up. And so I swing open my front door and I say, all right, make yourself comfortable. There's food in the kitchen. Relax, hang out, go in the backyard, whatever you want to do. And about an hour later, I realize I'm missing 4 or 5 kids. Now, we don't have a big house. We don't have a big yard. We live in a cul-de-sac. Not many places for these children to go. So I'm looking through all the doors in my home, and I'm opening up the bedroom. I'm going upstairs to the kids' rooms, and I can't find them. And finally, I see that the bathroom door is closed, and so I kind of knock, and I don't hear anything, and so I open it up, and there you have it. There are those 4 or 5 kids just hanging out in my bathroom. I was like, you know, we've got a living room, right? Like there's couches. I mean, shoot, you could even be laying down in a bed somewhere. Why are you hanging out in my bathroom? This is weird. And you know what they said to me? They said, this is the nicest and cleanest bathroom we've ever been in. And for a second, it caught me off guard because I thought to myself, that has got to be one of the most confusing things I've ever heard from a guest in my home. But then I realized that even in something as sterile as a bathroom, they had found comfort. They had found safety. They had found security. They had found a place to rest. Christ is the door to abundant life. And if those kids thought that my bathroom was nice, just imagine the grandeur of the porcelain thrones that await you on the other side of the door in the new creation. Amen.